Welcome back to the show. We're very honored to have joining us right now a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, of course, great author and thinker, Victor Davis Hanson. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello.
Nice to talk to you. Appreciate you coming on. Let's start with, I'm reading now, CNN, the contractor involved in this whole computer debacle says it was a last-minute change that caused all of the problems. You know, you wrote a great piece which talked about all the landmines that lie ahead for us as Americans due to the policies of Barack Obama and the Democrats. And why don't we start with Obamacare? As you rightfully point out, we're finding out every single day premiums aren't going to go up, aren't going to go down. They're going up. If you like your insurance, you can't necessarily keep it. And certainly if you like your doctor, you can't necessarily keep him. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I mean, these issues aren't contingent on a website. I think all of us, either when we have our open enrollment in October, which is occurring now, or we know people, we hear all sorts of stories, and what we do not hear is that the deductibles are going down, the premiums are going down, the coverage is being is competitive, more competitive than it was. Nobody's from the government saying this is going to lower the deficit. Nobody in business is saying this is going to make me more competitive, especially in a global sense. All of those promises that we were told just haven't happened. So, as I see this thing unwinding, that the shutdown now is ancient history. Nobody's going to be talking about it another week. They're not even talking about it now. But this thing is not specific to a problem with a web design. It's intrinsic, and it's going to be serial, and it's going to be insidious for the next 13 months.
I think you said it brilliantly when you said that over 300 million people are going to find that their health care is analogous to going down to the DMV.
Yeah, it is. It already is. It's already starting to. And it's sort of like these things that happen in American cultural history, whether it's the Edsel or New Coke. Somebody has an idea, they don't research it sufficiently, they don't bring it out. It's not what the public wants. They try to force it down the throat of the public, and you got problems. And in this case, the biggest flaw of it is that you really have to tell 30 million young people who are in good health and either don't have insurance or they got very cheap catastrophic insurance that they're going to have to pay a lot more for something they do not use very much, so that somebody who uses it a lot and doesn't pay very much for it will be balanced. And the problem is that the older cohort that will want that type of coverage subsidized is usually more affluent than the younger people who are experiencing record levels of unemployment. So I just don't see that young people are going to flock to this. I don't see a lot of people without insurance. Where I live in one of the poorest counties in California, which has the highest poverty rate of any state in the nation. Where I live in one of the poorest counties in California, which has the highest poverty rate of any state in the nation, at clinic, or they're on Medi-Cal, Medicaid, and they don't see anything wrong with that, at least not wrong enough to jump into a whole new program.
Right, and of course the provisions are the way the bill is written is that these young people may or should be well aware that they don't have to do anything until they get sick because they can't be turned.
I don't think they will.
Right.
Absolutely. If you're a young 25-year-old and somebody says, well, do you have insurance? And he says, well, maybe, and he tries to go on, and after an hour he can't get on. He just kind of shrugs and says, you know what, I haven't been sick in 4 years. Maybe if I play soccer or baseball, I might have a problem, but I'll just go pay the fine when I go to the emergency room.
Right, and if you get sick, God forbid, you could sign up for insurance because they can't they can't deny you for a pre-existing condition.
Yeah,
so
I think the problem with the president is that every promise that he gave the American people, this 2,700-page bill, has turned out to be erroneous. It was sold under so many different pretexts that businesses would love it because it would make them globally competitive, that people wouldn't have to change their program, that doctors would like it, and none of it's true. None of it is, and so I see that in a strictly political sense, getting worse each month, not better. Whereas the Republicans suffered from the shutdown, but it's over with. The Democrats are having a problem that's going to increase, and when you look at the comprehensive immigration bill, you're starting to see something somewhat similar, because there's elements in that bill that nobody knows about, but they will know about it, such as that we're going to offer a pathway to citizenship, that people have 2 DUI arrests, we're going to offer, we say we're talking about legal immigration reform, but we're still offering the vast majority of legal admittance to people who have family ties or proximity to the border. So we're not going to say, a Korean engineer or a Serbian MD goes to the front of the line. That's just a small minority of the legal people under the comprehensive reform. There's no guarantee that the border has to be closed. So I think everybody, is willing to talk about a pathway to citizenship, but this bill, once people start to understand it, they're not going to see in the bill itself to citizenship. But this bill, once people start to understand it, they're not going to see in the bill itself.
Talking to Victor Davis Hanson, Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution, and you could read him at victorhanson.com. And I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to go there next, but this disaster, if it does come to fruition as you describe it, my fear certainly is, and this is the only way it can get done, is that it will not be just, as healthcare was, a Democratic disaster. This will be with the compliance of Republicans in the House of Representatives, and I keep hearing and reading about these backdoor deals, and with Paul Ryan involved leading the charge, and I don't understand, and I'm frightened because I think the American public has forgotten about this. Even some of the Tea Partiers have forgotten about this, and it's on the back burner. And maybe the Republicans feel they could just do this and not suffer many consequences.
I don't think they're going to.
And it's on the back burner. And maybe the Republicans feel they could just do this and not suffer many consequences.
I don't think they're going to. And is residing illegally and has been arrested for drunk driving twice. I don't think they're going to say yes. I just don't think it's going to happen. And I don't think they're going to say yes to somebody who's been on federal assistance. So somebody who's gone state on some type of food stamp or disability or Section 8 housing, I don't think that, and that's going to be a sizable minority of the applicants. The other thing is, if the other states follow the California model in which we are legalizing driver's license, jury duty, you can even be a lawyer, in-state tuition, there's going to be a lot of people who say to themselves, why should I even go through the struggle or pay the fine and try to be a citizen when I can reside in the United States with a green card that's handed out to me? My children will be U.S. citizens. I just won't even take advantage of that. There's no such thing as living in the shadows almost anymore with these sanctuary cities and all these prohibitions against law enforcement for arresting people on the fact that they're here illegally. So the more you learn about this bill, the more it starts to resemble the contradictions of Obamacare, and I don't think it's a winning issue for the Democrats.
Well, what about, but again, where do the Republicans stand as far as you know? I mean, because I just don't understand what they don't understand about everything you're saying, and in my view as well, that the 30 million or so that will eventually become voting citizens of this country will be 95% or more, Democrat voters.
Well, they will be, but I think
country will be 95% or more, Democrat voters.
Well, they will be, but I think the fact is, in the case of health care, in 13 months, people are not going to say, well, I'm really happy that the Republican establishment worked with the Democrats and sort of let this Obamacare prevail. They're going to say, well, maybe the Tea Party Republicans were a little tough, or maybe they were desperate, but they had the right idea to stop this thing. And the same thing with comprehensive immigration. Maybe right now people are going to say you're a nativist or a xenophobe, but if you start to look at it and draw it out, people are going to start to appreciate those who stood up for it. And we can go down the line with the effect on this continually low interest, zero interest to service this massive debt. And the debt itself, we were told by the Obama administration, they inherited a debt that was caused by 3 or 4 things. One was the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The second was a recession. They told us the third was we didn't have taxes on the upper income brackets. He got taxes on the upper income brackets. The war in Iraq is over. It's almost over in Afghanistan, and we're supposedly in a recovery, and we've gone from $1.2 trillion deficit to $700 billion. So we haven't really, you can say that he's cut it radically, but that's only because it was so large in the beginning. But my gosh, if you have sequestration and tax increases and a supposedly recovering economy and no more foreign wars, and you're still running $700 billion, there has to be another explanation, and we all know what that was all the time. It's entitlement spending and expansions in federal redistributive all the time. It's entitlement spending and expansions in federal redistributive. There's no margin of error. You have to have about a 2% or less Federal Reserve payment interest rate so that you can service the $17 trillion debt. And the only reason that we're even talking right now in a country that has a viable economy is that although the debt is 3 times larger than it was in 1995, the interest that we're paying is about the same because the interest rate's so low. But if that would even go up 2 points, we would quickly see that about a third of the budget has to pay for these Obama debts. So I don't think that's another long-term consideration that I don't think looks good for the Democrats.
Yeah, and that's all in your great column. And Victor, great talking to you, sir. Well, I hope you'll come. That's all in your great column. And Victor, great talking to you, sir. Well, I hope you'll come show. And he's right. He's right on all counts. And people don't understand that. We talk about the debt in terms of real numbers or the numbers, dollar numbers, but we're not talking about the interest, the interest rates. And if we, go back, as he said, if the interest rates, which are at historic lows, almost non-existent, went up 1 or 2 basis points, then historic lows, almost non-existent, went up 1 or 2 basis points, then by a thread on so many levels. All right, when we come back, that interview that Kathleen Sebelius did with Sanjay Gupta, the self-appointed, a reputation destructionist of Dick Cheney, we'll let you hear what she had to say. Just incredible stuff. She needed 5 years to get this off the ground, not 3. They would have liked 5. Whew. Steve Malzberg shows to get this off the ground, not 3. They would have liked 5. Whew. Steve Malzberg show and radio.